Wong, and I'm the assistant professor at the Faculty of Education at Hong Kong U. So on behalf of the conference committees, I welcome you back to the morning sessions, the keynote speaker by Professor Bob Fox. And so I would like to take this opportunity to introduce him, and then I will turn the time to him a little bit. So actually, Professor Bob Fox, he's now professor at the University of New South Wales, and also in the Office of Pro-Vice Chancellor's Education in Australia. And he holds concurrent appointments as Professors of Innovations in Higher Education, School of Education, UNSW. And also Professor Fox was awarded the University of Hong Kong's University Teaching Fellowship for Excellence in Teaching. Between 2000 and 2013, he was Associate Professor and Deputy Director actually for the Centers for Information Technology in Education. And so with 1 year at the Chinese University of Hong Kong as Professor and Associate Director in the Center for Learning Enhancements and Research before returning to Hong Kong U in 2009. And he was also Assistant Dean, Learning Environments at the Hong Kong U, Faculty of Education for the last 2.5 years at Hong Kong U. Before working at Hong Kong U, he was Associate Directors and Senior Lecturers of the Center for the Advancements of Education in Curtin University, Australia for 13 years. And I'm sure I can continue to read, for a very, very long time about his experience and his expertise in education and in research. So without further ado, and we would like to welcome Professor Bob Fox to deliver his keynote speaking.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. Another lovely day in Hong Kong. Okay, so my talk today is entitled Changing Technology, Changing Practices, Empowering Staff and Building Capability in Higher Education. And my focus is very much on looking at the massive changes that are occurring in higher education around the world, and looking very much at the key resource that all universities have, which are their staff, both academic staff and professional staff. How do we keep our academic staff up to speed in terms of the new technologies? How do we keep our professional staff up to speed with the use of the new technologies, and how they can support teaching and learning and support academics in their teaching in using the technology? So that's the area that I want to really focus on, and I'm looking at one particular institution, my institution at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, as a case study as to what we're doing. So that's me. I've recently changed roles. I'm now an academic lead of curriculum. So with the curriculum changes that are occurring in my university, I'm taking a leadership role in assisting in that process of curriculum change. So a little background about the University of New South Wales. It's a research-intensive university. It's one of the GO8s, which means it's one of the kind of Ivy League, in another universities in Australia. And it's also a member of the EU21, just like Hong Kong U. Like Hong Kong U, it's got 10 faculties. We have about 50,000 students, so it's a bit bigger than Hong Kong U. I think in Hong Kong U there's about 30,000 at the moment. And we've got about 5,500 students, 5,500 staff, 3,000 are academics. We have a lot of on-campus accommodation. We have 5,000 students accommodated on campus. We're teaching predominantly face-to-face, and there is some blended and some fully online work, but that's still quite limited. In Australia, we have a survey which is sent to all students who have completed their studies, asking them feedback in terms of their experiences in teaching and learning and the quality of teaching and learning in their university, the university they went. And in Australia there's 44 universities, and UNSW in last year's survey came fourth from the bottom in terms of feedback from its students, its ex-students. So the university is really wanting to focus on how can we get better scores from our past students. What do we need to do to improve our education? So as part of the 10-year strategy, which is called the UNSW 2025, to try to make the university not only a research-intensive university, but also an education-intensive university. The university has put to one side 500 million extra Australian dollars to promote education, to focus very much on education, and to make the university an education-focused university over the next 10 years. The university plans to grow from 50,000 to 90,000 in the next 10 years. So that's a very ambitious growth, which has all kinds of implications in terms of the teaching, in terms of where the teaching happens, where the students learn. They can't all come to the campus at the same time. The university isn't big enough to accommodate 90,000 students all in the same time. So that means we're looking more and more at open and blended learning. There's a lot of cultural change that's going to have to be implemented within the university in order to make this a successful transformation for the 90,000 students that we're hoping to get. With the 500 million Australian dollars for extra that we're giving towards education, and that's about 3,000 million Hong Kong dollars. That gives you an idea as to how much extra money we're putting to one side. We're actually looking at handing that money out for strategic projects and for strategic initiatives, and I'm going to be talking to you about some of those initiatives that have just been started. An ex-colleague from the University of Hong Kong, Dr. Mark King, and some of you will remember Mark King. He was also in the Faculty of Education here at Hong Kong U. He's now working at the University of New South Wales in the same office as me. He has won a large sum of money. His project was worth 55 million Australian dollars, and then added to other projects that we've got within this initiative. It now is about $100 million extra that we've been given on this initiative called Inspired Learning. The main sections I will run through now. Obviously, when you're trying to make major transformation and change in an organisation, you have to look at many dimensions, and you have to look at the ecology of learning and the ecology of the environment in which the learning will take place. So we've set up a CNTO Education Academy, and this provides a fora and a group where identified good teachers from all faculties have been identified, who are also prepared to share their experiences and to talk to other teachers to improve and capacity build within their faculties and beyond. We're also focusing on first-year student experience, which is also quite a large initiative looking at identifying and talking to all students in first years, finding out what their experiences are, and then their ideas as to how we can improve their experience across the university. We've also set up various online community applications which are student-based to support their learning and teaching, and we have a major digital uplift program where we're trying to increase the numbers of online, totally online, and blended high-quality courses across the university. We've set up a summative peer review process for our academic staff. This year it is voluntary. Next year it will be required if teachers, if university professors and academics want to go for promotion, they will have to be peer reviewed from a summative point of view. And if they pass that, then they can go through the promotion process. If they don't do it, they're not going to be able to get promoted. And the same in terms of their contracts. If they want to go into a continuing contract role, then, or a tenure track as it's called here at this university, they will have to have their teaching peer reviewed. And that's actually quite a big move. We're also looking at a variety of digital assessment systems to look at some existing systems that are available, and to see if there are any that are suitable for use at the university in various cognate areas and disciplines. And we've also started an initiative to get much more help from students as partners. So we've now got students who are working with our curriculum design teams in developing curricula, focus groups of students talking about their experiences in different courses and programs, and then using their ideas and getting and paying them to assist us to make changes in all senses in terms of the curriculum. So these are, in summary, these initiatives are all part of this broad notion of an ecology of learning experience, looking both at systems, technologies, teachers, students, and how we can provide some kind of uplift across all of those to support improved quality student learning experiences. This is the more detailed side of the topics I've just talked about, and as they're part of the slides, I won't run those through again because you'll have access to that online. So we look at the multidisciplinary course design teams, and this is led by Dr. Mark King, ex-Hong Kong U. In his project, he's setting up quite large teams. He has about 50 staff working for him in this area of curriculum development. He's employed these 50 staff from all different disciplines, and of those, 70% of the staff employed have all got PhDs. And they're discipline experts, they're educational technology experts, there's some educational design experts, there's educational media and evaluation and analytics, data analytics expertise as well. So there's this broad group of staff which are supporting the development of blended and fully online courses. Now, because these staff are specialists in different areas, they don't have a broad knowledge necessarily of all of the areas. So we have to include them in any capacity build that we are working on, and that's what I'll be talking you through. Financial support we're giving to faculties to help them develop their blended and fully online courses, and to give their teachers some staff release and some extra staff to help in the development. And in this year, the numbers of courses that we're aiming to develop in terms of new blended and fully online is 82. And the numbers across the different faculties of science and engineering and built environments, etc., are in the yellow circles there. So with this digital uplift project, we have some 330 blended and 330 fully online courses which are going to be developed in the next 5 years. The courses we're choosing are those that have the most students. So of these courses that are being developed, 75% of our undergraduate student base will benefit from these courses. Mark King and his team have also developed an online course design tool to make it easier and educationally effective and empowering for teachers and the parapedagogues that support the teachers to develop quality online courses and to take into account the major considerations which we feel is important in the development of quality courses. We've also developed what we describe as a Scientia education framework that focuses much more on the university's 2025 strategy and ways that can be used as a support for teachers in thinking about how they can align their work with the UNSW 2025 strategy. So the Scientia Education Experience Framework has 4 main categories. The first is focusing on communities, on building communities, on online communities, and getting quality communities working with students, with staff. And there's a number of initiatives such as the Students as Partners projects, which I've talked about earlier, which is included in that side. Feedback and dialogue is another major area of the Scientia Education Experience. Opportunities to engage in scholarly dialogue and provide feedback and receive feedback between staff and students. And we've set up new instruments that will allow both online and offline opportunities for students on a regular basis, even on a daily basis, to provide feedback and interaction between themselves and the teachers. We're also focusing on inspired learning, and this is done through thoughtful design of courses and programs aligned to our graduate attributes and capabilities, and much more focused on the needs of the programs across all of our different disciplines. And the Digital Uplift program of the 660 courses that we're developing fully online and blended in a blended mode are part of that initiative. And the fourth dimension that we're looking at is focusing on what we're referring to as being digital. So thinking about how we can assist our teachers and our students think and work more effectively in a digital world. And that includes digital interactions, learning methods supported by the latest technological advances and digital processes. And we're looking at new kinds of learning spaces that provide much better quality and rich technology-rich classrooms, as well as various online communities that are being developed and apps that are being developed, both by our staff as well as our students. And broadly within that, we're also looking at how we can promote and support our best teachers to inspire other teachers to be excellent in their practice of teaching, and how we can support students taking on a more responsible and increasingly significant role in supporting the improvement of the learning experience and in the quality of the teaching and the courses that we're developing. So the Scientia Education Experience Framework is, I think, a very interesting development which is going through our academic board as we speak. But I want to focus on the fourth dimension here, being digital, because that's very relevant to the CITERS conference today. So already in the Australian newspapers there has been a lot of talk about what we at UNSW, University of New South Wales in Sydney, are trying to do. They're referring to UNSW as rebooting curriculum with an eye on the digital age. People generally are talking about this 500 million extra Australian dollars that are being spent in this area. Being digital is something that will require a lot of capacity build for both our staff and students. It's not just a case of actually developing online courses. As you know, there's many kind of complex issues that need to be involved in there. We're seeing that traditional learning methods will no doubt be supplemented by the digital environment. But at the same time, we're expecting that some of the practices not only will be supported, but will replace some of the existing practices as well. So this is something that, again, requires plenty of capacity build for both our staff and our students to get ready. So the basic examples of the digital uplift will be things like, for example, program and course designs that use digital technologies to best support student learning, looking very much at the affordances of the technologies and how they can replace components of more traditional, conventional teaching and learning. And how we can facilitate new literacies in students as well. Blended courses will become the norm, and we're also expecting digital technologies to enhance assessment outcomes based on evidence of enhancements to student learning and outcomes, and in administration of programs and courses to ensure various forms of efficiencies and to facilitate a global experience for our students. All of this requires us to think about a new approach for capacity build for our teachers and for our parapedagogues, our educational developers which are assisting our teachers. This is a picture which I have used on many occasions. I don't know how clearly you can see that. I'm just wondering if I can dim the lights at the front. Does anyone know? Is there a control? Perhaps not. But can you see that picture clearly? No, it's a bit difficult. Okay, I'll explain it to you. It's a promotional picture which was taken in about 1932 in California, and it's supposed to represent advanced technologies being used to support teaching and learning in schools. The students are sitting in desks, the teacher is at the front, but they are in fact in an aeroplane, and it's a geography lesson. And what the teacher is saying, you can see behind the teacher there's a blackboard, and the teacher is saying, no doubt, something like, now students, look out of the window on your left and you'll see a mountain. What is it? It's a mountain, right? The point that I'm raising is that technology per se does nothing to improve the student learning experience. And this, I think, is an excellent example of how not to use technology. The technology they're using in this instance in the geography lesson is an aeroplane to teach students what a mountain is by flying over it and pointing out in the window saying, that's a mountain, children, now what is it? It's a mountain. The children are sitting in traditional classroom desks. They look incredibly bored. It's not a good use of technology. Okay, so we really need to think about how technology can be used appropriately to support learning and teaching, not just by massive infusion of technology, because massive infusion of technology on its own does nothing to improve the student learning experience. So, looking at being digital and what this means and what new literacies means, Daniel Churchill has talked about the new literacy abilities that need to be taught. We've got the traditional abilities of reading and writing and speaking and listening, but then there's a series of other literacies that we now need to incorporate into our curricula, such as information literacies, identifying what information is needed, locating, evaluating and using that information, visual literacies, understanding, producing visual messages, critical literacies, questioning, challenging, evaluating sources and meanings, media literacies, questioning, analysing, interpreting and evaluating and creating media messages, tool literacies, using the digital literacies appropriately to manage and consume and create information, and finally digital literacies, using digital technologies, communication tools and networks to work with information and interact with each other. And all of these literacies are essential for our today's curriculum. So these have to be built in, and that's one of the things that we're wanting to do within the curriculum within our university, and we're taking a particular focus on one of this aspect, which is being digital in the university. And again, we need to think about capacity build and how we're going to do this. In the new literacies in the curriculum, we need to think of helping our students gain skills in accessing and networking such as harvesting and searching and filtering information, consuming information, visual, multimedia, etc., and also designing information, blogging and digital storytelling, etc. And all of these need to be in some way experienced by students in all the programs across the courses in any subject across the university. And this is something which we're trying to instigate across our university. We have developed and implemented through policy an outcomes-based curriculum, and we've adopted a Big CM framework, and you will recognise this framework as very much of a John Biggs model, but it's now a requirement across all of our programs. We need to take into account the university's strategic intent and also the university's graduate capabilities, and then building appropriate program learning outcomes and associated course learning outcomes for all of our courses and course components, and links between learning outcomes and assessments and alignments between all of the content, assessments and the outcomes, and then all of these then can be evaluated. So this is a kind of a standard model that you will all be very familiar with, because all Hong Kong education has moved this way for some time now. But what we're pushing a bit further is what's actually happening in all the courses. And we say that every course should include at least these 4 core components or elements. And these 4 course components or elements include resources, crafted tools and content to enable students to learn with, not just from, the resources. Activities, and this is the most important part, how we keep our students actively engaged throughout the learning experience, throughout their courses, because we know that people learn best when they're actively engaged, not listening to someone talk, but actually engaged in and interacting. So thinking about how we get the students to engage in the variety of resources through the tasks and experiments, through the problem solving we set towards achieving the learning outcomes. It all must be focused towards students demonstrating that they've achieved the learning outcomes that were set. Providing support. Many students, all students, can be considered these days digital natives, but not all students are at the same point of understanding how technology can be used to improve their learning experience. All students understand that the technologies and the social network is very good for social purposes, but how do you use these social networks? How do you use the other digital skills you've got to support and improve your own learning? This is something that requires support. We need to think about that in terms of how peers can help, how tutors can help, and also how technological support can be provided as well, broadly, to enable students to make the best use of the digital technology which is available to them. And then the final part that is essential in all courses is we've termed as evaluation. And what this means is structured information to guide and enable students to self-progress as they work their way through all the courses. And also as a tool for understanding what else is needed to ensure that the learning outcomes are achieved. Examples of this would be in designing scaffolds, frameworks that students can use to monitor and then test themselves to see how well they're doing on a weekly basis, to provide rubrics, etc., to provide that kind of framework that enables them to self-monitor, take on more responsibility for the learning themselves, identify the gaps, identify what else they need to do, and then how they can achieve the successful understandings at the various stages on a weekly basis. Because appropriate, timely, and constant feedback is essential in the learning process, as you know, and we can set this up in a digital fashion too, which is something that we're focusing on very much. I've also produced a video about the RAISE, and I'll include that link in the PowerPoint as well. So if we go back to this integrated curriculum framework that we've adopted, and we go and look at that central area of course and course components, we've said that these four elements are essential, and there is the new model. So we've got the Biggsian constructive alignment, as you will no doubt know, in an outcomes-based curriculum, and we've embedded the RAISE model within it. The next level we need to think about is if all of our courses embed the RAISE model, we can start to look at ways of segmenting components of the courses into micro courses. So each course, if well designed, can be restructured into smaller self-contained sections. There may be times when one needs something running across all of the sections, but there may be times when certain components of the course can be, as it were, hermetically sealed and then offered as a micro component, as a micro course. Examples of this would be approaches to using MOOCs, for example, and we've developed now over 30, 40 MOOCs at the university. What we're doing with some of these MOOCs is we're building them back into our accredited courses as a component of the course, which enables the students to do the MOOC as a self-contained component that might take, say, 6 weeks to do, 2 to 3 hours a week to complete. When they've successfully completed that, then we'll give them another micro course component, which may include more face-to-face interaction, project-based work, etc. So if we structure our curriculum and break down our courses so we've got micro sections or micro courses, then it also enables us, potentially, if the curriculum is carefully designed, to mix and match components across different courses. This results in the potential for us to look at rebuilding courses that can be used in a boutique way to support individual needs of students. So, for example, in this instance, this is a course that we're redesigning using micro bits to do with capacity building for teachers, and we're thinking about how we can focus the course and enable our teachers to select micro components which are most suitable for them at the time that they want to do it and complete those micro sections. And if they successfully pass a number of these micro courses, then we can credential it, we can give them a certificate at the end. Part of this will be done individually, part of this will be done in groups, part of this will be done in the faculties, in the schools across the university. Part of it will be done through the centre that I'm involved in, which is the Pro Vice Chancellor's Office. So in this particular example of microbits, some of the options that we're intending to offer are saying to staff that are doing the course, let's identify a scholarship area in terms of teaching and learning within your discipline. You go off and do some research and come back and provide a report. And then we will mentor you through actually developing and writing this report. And if you successfully pass that, you can move on to the next stage. We can ask them to include work-integrated learning projects, again, in their faculties or in their disciplines or cognate groups. We can ask them to do faculty-based learning and teaching investigations. There may be an online course component, which could be in the form of a MOOC, a BOOC, a SPOC, or whatever you want to call it. And there could also be a component which is an independent project. The totality of all these micro bits end up with a certified course equivalent to a standard course that we have running across a semester of 120 hours, etc. So This system allows us to develop microbits that can be boutiqued to suit the needs of individual teachers and individual educational developers across the university. If we look at these microbits, we can use them in different ways. So we can use them as individual micro courses. We can use them for continuing professional development, CBD, continuing professional development. So for example, doctors in Australia, to maintain their license as a practicing medical doctor, required to do continuing professional development, CPD, of 100 hours every year. That's a requirement. The same for lawyers, for teachers in the state of New South Wales, where I live. They require 30 hours of CPD. We can offer doctors, lawyers, teachers, MOOC courses, for example, or micro courses, and they can say to us, we would really like to have to do a series of courses on, for example, electronic leadership, e-leadership, management, copyright, intellectual property, whatever it is. And we can say, yeah, we can bundle that together. We can develop the course for you because we can take these micro bits and reshape and redevelop a new course just for you. Now for this in Australia, this is useful for us because unlike Hong Kong, in Australia, the money to keep the university afloat, we only get a small proportion from the federal government. The rest comes from our international students and from other ways that we bring money into the university. So having CPD courses that can be boutiqued to individual and professional needs is a great way for us to earn extra money. Okay? Going back to the micro-credentialing and to the micro courses and where they lead, we could have a bundle of these micro courses and they could be and support part of accredited programs. So this we're already now doing in a number of pilot projects across the university. In addition, we have students that say to us, okay, I've just done a degree in computer science, I've just done a degree in chemistry or physics or law or medicine. I would like to have on my testimonial some extra courses where I can, just get an edge when I go for my interview for my new jobs above my competitors. We say, okay, momentai, you can do this, but you'll have to pay us extra, right? We'll give you some micro-bit courses. So we offer you a micro course in this and that. You complete it successfully. We'll include that in the testimonial that we give you for your degree. So these micro courses then can be used in very flexible ways, as long as we use a rigorous structure like the one that I was talking you through. Here's a larger project where we've been focusing on building teachers and educational designers this year. The fault on the extreme left, I'm not sure if this works, yeah, this one here. FALT, this stands for the Foundation of University Learning and Teaching. It's a course which is about 50 hours of study, 50 to 60 hours of study. It includes 10 hours of 2-hour sessions, so that's 5 sessions of 2 hours, and the rest of the time is done online. Those that take part are involved in 3 MOOCs, which at the moment we have in FutureLearn, here it's an opportunity for the teachers of our university to engage in interaction and dialogue with other people from other universities around the world and also other teachers, both in the school sector. Now, there's been some advantages and some disadvantages of this. We trialled this in the first semester this year. The numbers of students we had on average across all of our courses was around 3,000 or 4,000, coming from all sectors. Some of the those that are engaged in the MOOCs all the way through were very experienced teachers. They had some experience of 20 to 30 years. So sharing their experience was very good for our teachers to engage in. But there were also some disadvantages when talking to focus groups of our teachers in the university. They were saying the trouble with this was there were a lot of people there that were in the school sector, not the university sector. And I only really wanted to talk to teachers in the university sector. So we're taking into account their concerns and the issues we raised. So when we're developing the MOOCs for the second semester, we're making changes to the Future Learn version to enable our students to have contained discussions only with UNSW staff, as well as, if they want, alternate discussions with those involved from the university, from the world community who are engaging in the MOOCs. On successful completion of the FULT, the teachers need to take an e-portfolio task. If they're successful with that task, they get entrance to a graduate certificate of university teaching, and there are 4 courses in that. On completion of the courses, which include an Introduction to Teaching and Learning, which is basically a revamp of this with a more scholastic approach, a course in student learning, 1 in educational design and 1 in enhancing learning and teaching, and on completion of that, they gain a graduate certificate in university teaching, which counts towards advanced standing for completing a Masters of Higher Education as well. And the 3 of the 4 courses of the graduate certificate count towards the 8 courses required to get a Master's. So they only need to complete 5 extra courses to end up with a Master's qualification. So that's the structure of what we're using. At the same time, we're promoting the curriculum structure using the RAISE, so all our courses need to include the RAISE components as well. And that makes up the capacity build for both our teachers and our educational designer developers, which we've encouraged to also take the course. And they gain a certification and then accreditation for completing this process. The full program, as I say, which ran in the first semester, we had 3 Future Learn MOOC courses. We had 100 UNSW staff involved in this in the first semester, and around 3,000 in Future Learn that were non-UNSW students. They also had to complete an additional MOOC, which was the assessment task, the e-portfolio task. That broadly describes the structure of those 4 MOOC courses. These are the 4 MOOC courses that were offered. But it's only 3 taught MOOCs, and the 4th one here is the assessment e-portfolio, which has to be submitted. Leading on to the graduate certificate, which has, as I explained earlier, 4 courses. At the moment we have 2 of those graduate courses which are now offered fully online in the first semester, and we're receiving the evaluations of that right now because our semester is just about finished. And then we've got 2 remaining courses at the moment which are offered in the blended mode, but they will be fully available totally online to those that can't come to any of the face-to-face sessions by the first semester of 2018. At the same time, through focus groups and evaluation studies generally that we're doing with our students and looking at our university needs, we're now actually wondering whether the existing graduate certificate of university teaching is actually worth continuing or not, because at the moment the number of graduate students in our university is only about 20 a year. So it's actually quite small, and we're wondering, is this worth continuing? Because it involves academic staff, general staff, etc. in teaching it, marking it, assessing it, providing students with feedback, etc. So we're looking at alternate ways of doing this. Does the existing program meet our UNSW strategy for capacity building? And is the program agile enough? Is it flexible enough? Can we change it to suit particular needs of the students, of the teachers, of the university. And at the moment we're thinking we need to revise the program. It's not flexible enough. So our next step is actually looking to see how that we can actually redesign the curriculum to make it much more agile, to make it much more flexible, to build in targeted micro courses into the graduate certificate and equivalent that can stand alone or be exchanged with the existing programs across the School of Education where this is offered, and based on our integrated curriculum framework structure, which I showed you earlier. So, what are we looking at for 2018? We're looking at a rather different kind of structure. So what we're looking at in 2018 is our FULT program will have 4 micro courses that will be available for students to complete. There will be the MOOCs or the MOOC equivalents, right, as well as the 2 hours of the 2 hours times 5 face-to-face opportunities for students to interact. But we're now looking at redeveloping the graduate certificate and also opening up a new graduate certificate of higher education here as another alternative for teachers to do. And we're going to have in each of the courses a core component and then a multiplicity of options that teachers can choose which are relevant to the topic of each of the courses that they can boutique to suit their particular needs. Again, we will use the curriculum structure of the RAISE and the Integrated Curriculum Program, and then later in 2019 we'll start to look at the Masters as well. So we're going to restructure it to see if we can suit particular needs of the teachers and the designers, educational designers and the parapedagogues across the university. If that increases the number of our graduates, then that will be of benefit and we will continue along this path. But we definitely need to increase the numbers of people that are actually completing our graduate certificate. So broadly in the university, these are the existing programs and structures that we offer our teachers. We have a very introductory course which we call Beginning to Teach, and this is designed particularly for PhD students who are acting as teaching assistants and are interested in or have been directed by their professors to engage in some teaching. So if they want to do some teaching, they're advised to do our Beginning to Teach course. This is a very simple introductory course of 5 sessions, each of 2 hours, and we also have a micro-teaching experience for all those teachers as well, which is monitored and evaluated. The foundations of university teaching I've talked to you about already, which can lead into the graduate certificate, which can lead into the masters, and then can lead into research-led programs. The spiral curriculum is being used across all of these programs, covering the same base but going into each in more depth. The Beginning to Teach and the FULT programs are run primarily by professional staff within the Office of the Pro-Vice Chancellor, with academic input from the PVC and across the university. We are looking to making the foundations of university learning and teaching compulsory across for all our teaching staff, and that will be built into their contracts as of the beginning of next year. So FULT will become compulsory. We're looking to see, at the moment we're discussing with faculties. Faculties are saying they're generally happy with this if it's for assistant professors, lecturers, senior lecturers. They're not so happy to say that all associate professors and professors need to do it, but we are saying yes, they need to do it, because it's not only an introduction to teaching and learning, it's also an induction into the university and into the focus for the university's 2025 strategy, and being digital, for example, and working with our Scientia education experience. What our students on the FULT are telling us is one of the key benefits for them is the experience of networking across the university, understanding the culture of the university, and recognizing that the problems they have in teaching and learning are similar no matter what cognate area they're working in. So our students are telling us, yes, make it compulsory, it's worthwhile. So we'll have to watch this space, whether we can insist that even all new professors have to take our FULT program. We will be insistent. There will, of course, be exemptions. If our full professors have an education qualification equivalent to the FULT from another institution, we will consider exemption for them. But if not, they will be required to take this. Because we must remember that in education, particularly, well, in higher education, it's one of those few professions where you can engage in the profession without a qualification in the profession. All you need to teach at a university is a PhD in physics, chemistry, geography, history. And we must be insistent that everyone who is in the profession of teaching engages in and completes successfully an education qualification that's accredited. So that's the way that we're moving, and that's the way that we're going to try to be very insistent. At the moment, we offer the graduate certificate, the master's courses. It's taught by our academic staff. We're also offering a number of other initiatives. Some of this I've already talked about. We have the CNT Education Experience I've talked about, the Inspired Learning Initiative, which I talked about earlier on, the student surveys. All of these are hot text. I will leave all my slides here so those of you that are interested can link into all those URLs. And we've got various developmental programs. We offer fora, conferences, sessions, workshops, communities of practice, and various studies. What we're doing is when students have completed the higher education master's course, then we then pay their fees back. What we've decided was we're not paying their fees in advance because we find that many of the teachers do 1 or 2 courses and then they drop out before they complete. And that's an expensive process. So what we're saying now is you pay up front, and then when you complete your master's course, we'll give you the money back. Okay, so that'll give them added incentive to complete. And I talked through that one. The other initiative we've done is we've just created a whole new career path for education-focused staff, and we called for expressions of interest. Earlier in May, we had 160 applicants who wanted to change their contracts from being research and teaching to being just teaching, education-focused. And then we can, of those 160 that put in their applications, we will offer 120 of those in this for the second semester for the next 5 years, an education-focused career pathway, and we'll provide them with professional development, extra funding to support improvements in their teaching and learning, etc., and ways that they can do more scholarly teaching and learning. So information about that is actually here. We're providing academic promotions now for our academic staff if they want to do education focus, purely education, from both for promotion from lecturer to now full professor. So you can now get a full professorship through teaching, through education only. Obviously you have to engage in scholarly work in teaching and learning to get your full professorship, but we offer that now to all of our staff. And there are various other initiatives, grants and awards, and designing the curriculum, etc., and structures that I've already spoken about. So just a little information about our promotions procedures now. So you can now go for a promotion purely on education or purely on research, but you also have to engage in social engagement, global impact, and leadership across all of these. The levels that you have to get, You can either fall in the outstanding, superior or current, and there's a point system that has to be used. This is all explained on the website for those that are interested. Here are the frames that you can get. So if you want to get promoted using any of these 3 pillars, if you get superior, you have to get 6 points altogether. If you get superior points for education, research and social engagement, then yes, you can get promoted. Here's another one. If you're getting promoted in another way, you can get outstanding for education. So you get a point for that, and then and that's worth more points, and also social engagement, but nothing in the research. And here again, you can get promoted through education, through a little bit of research, and a couple of points. As long as your points add up to 6, you can get a promotion. So, here are some other resources that I'll leave you with regards to academic promotion and capacity build that we've recently implemented across the university. In summary then, rounding it up, the changing technology and changing practices, empowering staff and building capability. The demand, certainly in Australian universities and in American universities, for being agile is now the norm. We have to become much more agile. We need to provide people with a lot more opportunities. We have to break those opportunities down. We need to offer new approaches and new technologies as a stimulus for trialling and evaluating new practices, new curriculum frameworks and education capacity building across the schools and faculties and institution. And we need to look at new solutions, technological and others, such as MOOCs and micro-credentialing, as a catalyst for re-examining blended learning and embedding evaluated program and micro-course design models. Thank you. I'm afraid I went on a little bit too long, but there may be an opportunity for someone to ask a question.
So once again, thank you for Professor Prof to share with us a very outstanding and very engaging talks about the ecologies of learning and about the changes in the higher educations and how agile approach will be very important to get us moving in this digital era. So I would like to open to this floor if you have any questions to ask Professor Fox. Okay. So do we use...
Good morning, Professor Fox. I was wondering, is it going to be rolled out nationally? Because at my time, I also a graduate of the New South Wales. And at that time, actually, we were compared with Sydney Uni. And Sydney Uni was, the student told me that they are more on to research compared to University of New South Wales. We were actually, at that time, look after students better in teaching. But time has changed. But I'm just wondering, in this day and age, it's going to be New South Wales. Is it going to be the pilot, or it's going to be rolled out to Melbourne or Western Australia, or will be a global trend that the academics, not just at my times, everyone is about research, honors program, get the PhD program, and then we were given in New South Wales we have plenty of time. Not these courses, but we have so much time. We spend our time in self-learning in the library because at that time technology was not available. I'm just wondering whether you can share your thoughts with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's an excellent question. Maybe I'll stand here. This microphone works better. It's a really good question. What I've talked about is the university as a case study at New South Wales. I see a world trend for people in universities across the world starting to look at and take education more seriously. Because what changes universities? What changes universities? Well, one of the things that change universities is their reputation. University reputation for research has always been paramount. One reason for that is it's easy to count research. You can count the amount of money you brought in research. You can count the numbers of publications. Teaching and learning has been difficult to count, and so it hasn't been in the major rankings or indicators. But increasingly we're starting to find ways of actually counting quality in terms of teaching and learning. So these will be, as the future progresses, included as metrics more and more into all the university ranking systems. And then I can guarantee every university will take education more and more seriously. Yes, so that's the way you move institutions. You put in indicators and then they will go. Universities take very seriously their rankings. I recently did a consultancy in Singapore at the Nanyang Technological University, and they were taking it extremely seriously. And look where they are now. They're moving up and up and up and up the table, and they're focusing very much on not just research but also education. It's becoming more and more important for them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we can take one more question from the floor. Is there any questions? Or if not, I would like to take this chance to ask one question. And so I think this is very important for the students to engage at a very early stage in designing all these learning modules. So how does the university engage the students at a very early age to make sure that they like these approaches?
Yeah, again, a good question. We're actually adopting a number of strategies. We're working closely with the student unions, and we're also asking students to volunteer to take part in curriculum design. But the other way we're engaging students is we pay them for their engagement. We actually give them money. Students are often quite poor, and they like the idea of getting money for the work they do. Therefore, they take it seriously, but we pay them on outcomes. So we give them money, but then we expect outcomes. So they are required to contribute. So those that don't contribute then get asked, well, thank you very much for your service, but we haven't seen much contribution, we'll ask another student. So students get engaged because we take them seriously and we pay them for their engagement.
Sounds good. So maybe I should be go back to the students again and do so. So, well, again, thank you very much, and let's give him an applause for the appreciation. Thank you for the applause. So, may I now invite you to take a small break, and then we will proceed to the sessions in the parallel session. So, thank you very much again to attend this keynote session. Thank you very much.